enjoy it. And we are going to have our first Gen Pride panel from 12:50 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Our panel moderator will be Aaron, so I will pass it off to him.
All righty. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for sharing time and space with us again today on this Friday afternoon. My name is Aaron, and I am a rising second-year transfer student majoring in communication. I have the honor of being your moderator today for this first gen Pride panel. I'm a first gen college student myself. Neither of my parents attended college. I'm the third of 4 children. My older sister joined the Air Force, 10 years older than me. My older brother was in and out of community college and the workforce. So most of what I know about navigating higher education has been through my own experiences, from dropping out of university on my first try to really growing at community college and through CCCP, and then transferring to and surviving UCLA. I think it's really important to understand how to name and embrace that first gen identity, because it does explain so much of what we go through and the strength we have. So with that being said, we have some amazing panelists in our presence today to share about their own stories and experiences being first gen students. Super excited to hear from them. So to start us off, if we could have our panelists introduce yourselves, please share your name, your major or area of study, and briefly how you identify as a first gen student. And I will be pasting the questions in the chat for your viewing, but anyone could start us off.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Brenda Kuroga. I am a first gen student. I actually went to Santa Monica College before I transferred to UCLA, where I majored in history and actually studied abroad. And I'm currently finishing up my master's here in Ireland.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with y'all today. Thank you for joining us for session 2. Again, my name is Jessica Sanchez Galvan. I am a double major in sociology and Chicanx and Central American studies with a minor in education. And I actually already graduated from UCLA. I'm just taking the fall quarter to just finish my, my minor, which I'm like so excited about, all that hard work and studying and stressing and, all of that, it's so worth it. So very excited to be here with y'all today. And just my plans is to continue on working in community colleges. So I am also working for College of the Canyons as an undocumented student on the ISON. So if y'all have any questions, or if you go to actually College of the Canyons and you have any questions, feel free, stop by. I'm here to help as much as I possibly can. So yeah, thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen D. Can you hear me okay? Sometimes the AirPods can be finicky. Okay, cool. I'm currently a rising second year student at the George Washington University Law School. So 2 more years to go, I'm counting the days. But I am a proud double transfer Bruin alumna. I got my bachelor's in English with honors in 2017 with a minor in African American studies. And my master's is also in African American studies. So if anyone is interested in both grad and professional school as a transfer, happy to unpack that. I went to Mount San Antonio College and I graduated in 2015, 2015.
Hi everyone, my name is Lena. I hope you can hear me well. I can't see myself. So it's nice to be back to see some familiar faces. And I'm currently being locked out from my home because I don't have my key card. So you may see the background why there's a wall and there's a door. But I currently a doctoral student from UCLA School of Education. I went to Pasadena State College, Santa Barbara City College. Non-traditional transfer student, first generation as well. For me, being first gen means I have to navigate in the higher education system by myself. Yeah, so I'm very excited to be here with everyone. Yeah, go Lancers.
Thank you all so much for those beautiful introductions. And as you all see, we have some very accomplished panelists. So feel free to drop questions in the chat and, be interactive as possible. We're really excited to hear more about your stories. So To get us started, this first question is open to all of our panelists, and it is, what were some of the challenges you faced as a first-gen student?
I think the one thing that I was really, really scared about was the quarter system, the idea of the quarter system at UCLA, the idea of this was going to be a faster pace than I think what we're used to. Definitely the money aspect of it, just kind of like, oh my gosh, like this is a big financial undertaking. How am I going to pay for this? So all of these, I think all of the things that you do worry about as coming from a family that doesn't have a history of going to college and doesn't know how to navigate these questions in these spaces. So I think it's, everybody has those things, but with the help of CCCP and, just the community that holds so much knowledge in this space, it made it really, really helpful and a little bit easier to understand how to navigate the space.
I definitely echo Brenda's sentiments, and I think just to share more about me. So I'm actually Sierra Leonean American. So first in my family, born in this country, immigrant parents, all that jazz. So navigating that at such a young age, had always dealt with a lot of pressure put on me. And I think that is very common with those of us from immigrant or children of immigrant backgrounds where, you grow up having these expectations that have been both placed on you, but also placed on yourself. So I think as a transfer, I always felt like I needed to hit certain, milestones in order to feel worthy about myself. And I got to a point where I was like, I need to go at my own pace. So I actually took a year off. I actually kind of wish I took more time off, but I took a year off to just work and, really be intentional about what my next steps were going to be after undergrad. I think so many people just throw themselves into grad school, professional school, because they think it's what they're supposed to do. And by all means, if it is what you're supposed to do, be okay with it not necessarily being on your own timeline. And I think that it can go both ways. For some people, it works going straight through. But for me, I just was, dealing with the quarter system and having to study and, get law school apps together and even some grad apps because I was applying to some joint programs. So it was just a lot. And I was also a RA. I did a senior thesis. So as you can see, I'm very type A, which is why I'm going to be a lawyer. But at one point I was like, I need to just take a deep breath and really go at my own pace. So I always just like to remind people that your journey is your journey. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you don't end up in, grad school right after undergrad. It's not the end of the world if you don't end up at like Columbia Medical School, whatever, Harvard Law. Like, you are always going to be where you are meant to be. And so I think my takeaway with that is, one, just be gentle on yourself because you have gotten this far. And I think that's something I would tell like my early 20s self, is to just, take a deep breath and, be intentional and thoughtful. And I think when I was an undergrad, social media was relatively big, but now it's even bigger with everybody comparing where they're supposed to be at based on what other people are posting on social media. So all in a nutshell, just do you. That would be my biggest takeaway with that. And those were some of the challenges I encountered.
I definitely echo those sentiments where we often, especially for me who drop out from college and returning to college, I just feel like I'm falling behind. My friends are graduating, they graduated 4 years ago, they're in professional journey, they're getting married, different kind of timelines and demands. And it was very detrimental to my mental health. Meanwhile, as a commuter student, you have to, and I have 2-3 jobs at least. I was also doing research. So I really had no time to rest, to even take care of myself when I was at UCLA. And I always have that kind of fear, what if it happens again? What if I give up on myself again and drop out? That kind of constant fear. Just kind of shadows me during my 2 years, and that's why I always have that fear, and that fear kind of motivates me to overwork, and eventually really, I have to crash down um, um, after the first year of UCLA, and roommate issues as well. If you move with someone else, like some strangers, um, there are just a lot of struggles, and I don't want to isolate any struggles because all the struggles are connected as a first generation college students. Financial aid, I don't even know how to navigate financial aid. I got work study, but it's not paying enough. And commuting, right? Non-traditional students, academic challenges. Being in a big classroom, I just don't want to speak up. I feel very isolated. I don't know how to connect with my professors, with my peers. And I think how I overcome that challenge just to find your community. So AAP and CCP has been my, my home and my support system. So I really utilize those kind of peer PLF session, the peer facilitator, the tutor session with AAP. And that's where I make other friends who are transfer students, who are non-traditional, who are immigrants, who are women, student of color. And working with the AAP, that's another way for me to kind of channel my stress and understanding that, we're all going through this process. And it's really important that you're not alone, you have a community, and you can be very strong with the community behind you.
I definitely want to echo, everything that everyone just mentioned. Specifically for me, as I have mentioned earlier, I am an undocumented student. So for me, navigating the system that was foreign to me was one of my most, difficult challenges, in addition to trauma, to say the least. Because I felt, right, that, as I was continuing education, again, I was very blessed to have very supportive parents who were always pushing me to go to school, right? But as a first generation undocumented student, right, sometimes, it was difficult for me to understand how to go about the system because it was foreign to me. Like, I just didn't know what I had to do. I didn't know how I had to do it. I didn't know who to reach out to. So oftentimes that definitely created a lot of pressures to me. And, like the pressure and the fear of failing, because, my parents were looking up to me. I'm like the oldest daughter, the first one in the whole family to go to college. So for me, I felt that I had to be like that example and I couldn't fail, that I had to be always an A student, that I couldn't complain because I was at this country, with greater opportunities. I was in this country, my parents were giving me, they were sacrificing so much for me to be, continue my education, and they would always like influence me. But, emotionally, it was so exhausting, but I mean, as I navigated the system, I learned to let go some of that fear, some of those, chains that for a long time made me feel trapped. And I just learned that it was okay. It was okay to validate my feelings. It was okay for me to be afraid, but it was okay to also reach out for help, because, reaching out for help doesn't equal that, that that you can't do it, right? It's important to, build that community. And I was, as a first generation, I had to build my community. Like, I've always said this, but like behind me, I have like my ancestors. I have like a village behind me who's constantly pushing me, right? And if I fall, like they pick me up, and that's how I've been learning how to navigate the system. That's how I've learned, to fight imposter syndrome, because even, I started at Mount San Antonio College, and even then I met such amazing people that I feel like if it weren't for them, like I wouldn't be where I'm at now. And then now, I'm here at UCLA, finishing UCLA, and I still can't believe I did it, because for oftentimes, it's very difficult for me to see myself in such a big space like UCLA, statistically, I don't want to say I don't belong because I know I belong here, but, it was like in my mind, it was in the back of my head saying like, wow, you're undocumented, wow, you're this, you're that, it would definitely bring me down. But my motivation was like, no, well, I'm gonna prove all those people wrong. Like, I'm gonna prove statistics wrong, and I'm gonna help my community, So that's all, I've, it like my struggle was, overcoming the fear, overcoming those traumas, overcoming, that pressure of like wanting to be the perfect role model, and just realizing that it's okay to not be perfect, and you just have to be okay with that. But again, community is so big. So for me, my community is like everything. So they, push me, and then they allow me, they're just there, so when I need it. So I'm very blessed, to have the people that I have around me, because if I wouldn't be the same person I am without them.
Thank you all so much for sharing and being vulnerable with us. Lea, a lot of common themes with first-gen students. The stressors of the transfer process itself, money, the quarter system, just being an unfamiliar system, and also like family pressures and fear and trauma, and the ways of overcoming, just doing you, drawing support from your communities. For our attendees, I hope these sentiments can really resonate with you, and remind you that you're not alone in this process, and your experiences are shared. So thank you all for answering that question. So our committee has prepared a lot of great questions, and I also want to draw from the chat as well. So we'll try to start with the community questions, and then ask some questions from the chat. So this first question is for Brenda. Being the first in your family to go through the transfer process, how was the experience for you?
It was scary. You're just in, again, kind of unfamiliar territory. You have all these questions, and then, it's such a huge accomplishment. Like, first of all, like, you're in school and you do so well, and then you get into a place like UCLA. And if you're, from California, especially, like, I grew up in LA, born and raised. And so, like, of course, like, my family knew this school, this university, and it had such a prestigious kind of hold on it. And so you're navigating this new kind of space, and then, but your parents are also asking you these questions that you don't even have the answers to, because you're just trying to figure it out yourself. So people are like asking you questions that you just don't have answers for, and that's okay. I just want everybody to know, like, it is okay not to know, but it is so important to ask questions, and don't be afraid to reach out to, like, the resources at the school. Email the admissions office, email financial aid, or walk in, go and ask the questions yourself, because, like, that's what they're there for, but I feel like a lot of times, even while I was there, I had friends who were still so scared to go and ask questions. But no, like, use your resources. CCCP is such a huge resource within the UCLA community and system. And there's a lot of information to be got from you guys. So, ask questions, don't be afraid, because people will help you. That's what I would say. It was scary, but I got through it, and you will too.
All right, thank you so much for that answer. Yeah, as a communication major, I second that advice. Communicate, advocate for yourself, really important. Next question is for Jendi, and it is, what do you have to say to people who argue that the key to success in higher education is to assimilate?
Wow, that's a great question. I wasn't expecting that. I think that what makes us as transfers really special is that we are all so different. I mean, within the transfer hat, as I'm even hearing now, so many of us wear other compounding identities that impact our transfer experiences, whether we're undocumented, or we're parenting students. I had a lot of friends from a lot of compounding identities, and I definitely got to see firsthand how that impacted transfer students. But to speak for myself, just as a Black student on UCLA's campus, I was aware that the campus only had 3% Black people. So I didn't come into that like being shocked or anything. And I think it actually made me just become very resourceful, and I networked and utilized as many resources. Whenever there was like a campus job opening, I was trying to see if I could do that, as well as juggle being an RA. I was that student who had 2 to 3 jobs throughout my undergrad and my master's experiences, paying for all the things by myself, car note, insurance, all of that. So I remember, just having that support system. They knew, I didn't have to explain myself or why I was working. Like when you have that community of people, they know, but I don't think you need to assimilate at all at a place like UCLA, because when you find your tribe, when you find your support system, you want also different heads in the mix as well. So I also encourage people, don't be afraid to also even ask people on a hierarchical level for help. I think as students, we see like, oh my God, they're an administrator, or, I don't know if I can come to this staff member or this professor with something, because they may never know. If you're struggling with mental health or you need extra time on a paper, it's important to communicate that earlier rather than later. It's really late to communicate, you needed some support with mental health and needed extra time when it's like the final paper is due today or something like that. So I learned that lesson, throughout my time at UCLA. And yeah, I mean, just to wrap it up, I feel like as transfer students, particularly transfer students of color, we don't just wear the identity of transfer. I mean, even the panelists, like I think we are a testament to, just all these other experiences. And though I was a traditional age transfer student, I still felt like my mentality was different than other people my age. Like to this day, when I talk to people from AAP, they're like, wait, you were like that young? And I'm like, yeah, they all thought I was older. But I was traditional age. It's just having navigated a community college system, there was a level of accountability that I had, because I had to navigate that by myself. Nobody did that for me. Nobody was reminding me of FAFSA deadlines. Nobody was reminding me to go sit down with a counselor because you don't want to take classes that are not doing anything for you. I've seen it happen. You're taking all these classes to try to, matriculate and graduate, and then you find out you didn't need this or that. So I was always very proactive when it came to that, because I think if you can get to UCLA, you have some type of proactive skill sets. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but there were so many different kinds of transfers within the community that made the experience so valuable. I mean, I'm forgetting even veteran students as well, students who are in the military, who added to like my experiences in the classroom. I remember doing the transfer summer program, which is a 6-week like introductory program when you get to UCLA, and we had parenting students who were getting 4.0. So I was like, dang, let me get my act together. So, it's just good, I think, personally too, to be around different kind of people.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. And reiterating what Jenny said, we have a group of powerful panelists with us right now, transfer students of color. And I really loved how you drew upon, compounding identities, intersectionality, and, really community cultural wealth, like we talk about in CCCP, just drawing from our communities, our networks, and our unique skill set. So thank you for that answer. The next question is for Lena. How has being a first generation student shape your experience as a doctoral student?
I think that kind of identity being for us first gen, you kind of carry on that identity into grad school as well. So that sense of non-belonging, the imposter syndrome continue in grad school, especially got so much worse in grad school. To be honest with all of you, I started my first year during COVID, the online grad PhD program, I almost dropped out. I just feel like I have no place to even, challenge my colleagues, challenge the professor like I used to do, because at the higher position, you have higher stakes. And for me, I always ask myself, where are you at the position to even ask for that kind of piece of advice? Where are you at that position to even articulate your own thoughts? But I will say, really have faith in yourself, because you have such a strong voice. If you don't use it, no one really see your voice and see the value. And then most of the time, as an Asian woman, immigrant student, we're often being just dismissed. Whatever we propose will be dismissed, be unheard. And we're just becoming that model minority without being understood. So I really want to make sure that I can stay in my ground, and also train your voice, and also through different kind of storytelling, even with the PIQs, you're writing about your story in an eloquent way that you can persuade people, your worthiness, right? Which is really sad that you have to be competing of your worthiness. But I think it's important to really, besides the community support, have faith in yourself, because no one can support you if you give up on yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lena. And yeah, thank you for, being a role model for a lot of students. Like a lot of students, first gen, don't see themselves in these, positions to pursue a PhD. And thank you for acknowledging that balance between having faith in yourself and also, drawing from communities. It's a really important balance. So thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna go to the chat and ask this question. This question is for Jessica specifically. Do you have any resources for undocumented students looking for scholarships?
Yes. So there was a couple resources shared in the chat, but if there is something, right, and I just want to talk about this like very quick, sorry. When I was an undocumented student, like in high school, I didn't think the college was for me. And why? Because, when I was in high school, there was no one who talked to me about the California Dream Act. There was no one who talked to me about potential scholarships that I can apply for, or like what the AB 540 was and how I can get inside tuition. My mentality, right, or like my understanding at that point was like, oh, I can't go to school because I'm undocumented. Like I have no type of like legal document for me to be able to go to school. So I can't, But, little did I know that there's so many opportunities out there. At least here in California, there's so many. In other states. Some states still, do actually give students in-state tuition. Some states, unfortunately, do not at the moment. But here in California, there's so many different scholarships. If you are, and I mean, I can definitely, like, if you're specifically, or you are yourself are in the undocumented student and you want to apply to these scholarships that I'm about to, mention, like, let me know and I can help you. But there's like in the national, nationally, there's a specific scholarship called the Dream.US National Scholarship that it's awarded for undocumented students who want to pursue higher education and show some interest. Show some need of financial assistance. So it's national, I believe. Don't quote me on this, because when I started, or when I was I'm actually a recipient of that scholarship. But when I became a recipient, I believe that the scholarship was like $24,000, depending on what college institution you would go to. But that scholarship is also available for like transfer students and like first year college students. So if you know anyone who's in high school and is undocumented, let them know to apply. But at least something that you can definitely do is research with different nonprofit organizations like Immigrants Rising. I know like also like Carecen may have some, although it's like more like a legal assistance. They also have different scholarships available. There's also one with Maldef. I put it on the chat. With Maldef, they have different like scholarships that are for the academic year. So they're always constantly changing their documents. So like they're always are going to be updating it. And of course, also Immigrants Rising. Immigrants Rising, I mean, in my opinion, is one of the most like amazing resources for undocumented students, because they have everything that you can possibly think of in terms of like, say that, how to like put your own business, how to definitely navigate the financial aspect and the financial barriers, of being like undocumented on like in the US. So definitely look into that. So yeah, and also look through your community. Also apply for any scholarships that are available at your school. Definitely want to make sure that you look into all of that. Start how I always tell students, and how I always think of also for myself, is start within like your school. Start what scholarships are available like at your institution, then what scholarships are available throughout your community. So like the city, sometimes the city halls or like other like districts might have scholarships, so look into that. Also like different foundations. Also like if you reach out, like I know sometimes like the fast web and all those like scholarships are not really mindful, of undocumented students, because they like there's a little bull letters like, oh, US citizens only. Like, oh, can't apply to that. But there's some like out there, that you can go through all of that. But again, look through your community, and also look through different nonprofit organizations, which honestly they're like so amazing. So yeah. But if you have any questions, with how to like look for those scholarships, or if you need assistance with like personal question or personal, like the write-ups that you have to do, let me know, and I can also definitely help with that.
All right, thank you so much for sharing all those resources, Jessica. Yeah, again, that community cultural wealth, network with us, communicate with us, we have the information. Um, so we'll be going back to our questions. The next question is for Jendi. How did you navigate the application process for both UCLA and law school, given that you were the first person in your family to go through that process?
It's a great question. Yeah, it was very challenging in the beginning. So I had a very interesting pathway into grad school and into law school at GW in DC. So I basically had just bombed the LSAT, which is an exam you have to take to get into law school. And I already knew I was going to retake it, study again, but I had gotten into UCLA's master's, which was, I'd applied initially to their joint because I thought at first I wanted to do a joint degree, but now looking back on it, it's good I did not do a joint degree because law school's crazy. But anyhow, I got into the master's in AFAM with a scholarship at UCLA, and I didn't have to take the GRE, so that was helpful. So my LSAT did suffice. I don't know how that works now, but at the time, because I was applying to a joint program, I did not need to take the GRE in addition to the LSAT. So I made a decision after I took my year off, worked, cleared my head. I made a decision to go back and get my master's because I was always really interested in like further study. So let me backtrack. In undergrad, I wrote a thesis about immigrant experiences of Sierra Leonean American women in the US. And I felt that within just the dialogue of West Africans in the US, there really wasn't enough like out there about us. We're kind of like the invisible West Africans. Nobody thinks I'm Sierra Leonean. Everywhere I go, they think I'm Jamaican, Haitian. I get Central American, Belizean, Panamanian. I've gotten it all. So that really just my life experiences and growing up in a predominantly white city. And I actually am the only one amongst my siblings who had went back to Sierra Leone. So I always had just felt like sometimes a little bit of an outsider, like too African to be American, too American to be African. And when I was at UCLA, I started to embrace being somewhere in between. And I think a lot of us, are somewhere in between in this like hybrid identity. So that's what inspired my thesis at the undergrad level. And because I just did so well with that, a lot of the faculty I met at UCLA were always like, what you mean you want to be a lawyer? Like, you need to get a PhD and be at the forefront of this. And I was like, I don't know about that. But I knew that I had interest in it. And the fact that I got it funded from UCLA, it became like a passion project for me. I was actually still working multiple jobs at that time. I was working actually as an office coordinator at Rio Hondo College. I worked at Mount SAC too. So I was still working, and law school was still kind of like the plan. And again, I don't know how it is now with COVID, but with law school admissions, sometimes they evaluate you differently when you have a master's degree and work experience. Not to say that it gives you a boost, so do not quote me on that, but you are evaluated differently. So on a personal and strategic, and then just also wanting to get out of my mom's house, like going back to get the master's just made a lot of sense for me, especially because, it was funded and I knew that it would give me time to also like work on preparing for the following admission cycle for law school. So that was that part. And while I was doing the master's, I did a lot of extensive research. When I was in undergrad, I actually went to Sierra Leone. I created my own study abroad program and I got funding from various entities on campus. So it was very much like really cool to take all kinds of classes and from various departments. Like I took an education class, race and ed from Dr. Tyrone Howard, which was amazing and life-changing, took classes from various, departments, but I still felt as though this was enough. Like, I think I had I had quenched that thirst I had, and I didn't think the PhD was what I needed. I felt like the master's was kind of like, okay, I've kind of like done this thing and, I could still teach on the side if I want, but I knew I did not want the PhD track. And I think for me, one of the deciding factors was I really wanted the ability to practice law. And in this country, you can bypass the JD and do what Kim Kardashian did, but not all of us are fortunate to have that. But For us regular folk, we got to go to law school and then take the bar and pass it and practice. So in the United States, you can only practice law if you pass the bar. So that was really the deciding factor, because to be honest with you, I can do anything a PhD person can do. I mean, that's all we do as law students, as lawyers. We write research. So it was just the practice part. So I tell people, also know why you're going to law school, because some people go to law school and I think they get caught up in, you know, trying to maybe meet certain expectations of family members, or they think that it's going to be like how to get away with murder with Viola or Law and Order. And I'm like, no, that's not what it's going to be like. So really know why. And after doing my first year, so first year of law school is the hardest year. I did the first year remotely, which, I mean, hard is an understatement. Like, you know, fortunately I still look young, but that first year was just, I would never, I mean, your life is your life, but if you don't plan to do anything legal related, do not suffer, do not go through that. But, you know, everyone has their own path. But yeah, that was my journey. And then I actually applied a second time, right? And didn't get it. So this was like during my master's, like I was like, I didn't get it. Then I applied a third time towards the end of my master's. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to take this LSAT again. So y'all should know that like the imposter syndrome, just like I was sinking in the imposter syndrome. I was like, what is wrong with me? Like my parents are gonna think I'm a disgrace. What's going on? And I was a part of the Law Fellows program, which is housed in UCLA Law. However, it's open to anybody. So if you don't transfer to UCLA, you can still apply to that. You just need to have a university GPA. Highly recommend that program. So I went to their office, like with tears in my eyes, just like, all right, y'all, I'm gonna just apply a fourth time and I'm gonna take this LSAT a fourth time. And the assistant director, Amanda Smith, was looking over my stuff and she was just like, your personal statement is really powerful. You have such a bomb GPA, both at the undergrad and grad level. I know you don't like your LSAT, but let's just see what happens. And if you're not happy with this, then you can reapply that fourth time. So at this point, COVID-19 happened. So I'm sitting there like, oh, okay. So this is a pandemic. The world is changing and falling apart. What do I do now? So I did apply, and I almost didn't even apply to GW. I didn't think I could get into even a top ranked, you know, top 20, top 30 law school, because I just felt my LSAT was like impossible. But, you know, I firmly believe that if God has a plan for you, like nobody can ever close that door for you. So I got in. They actually waived my seat deposit because I was a late admin. I was waitlisted at first. Usually those seat deposits for law school are pretty hefty. So they emailed me back saying it was waived. And, you know, that helped me feel a lot more comfortable with making a quick turnaround decision. So I stayed here in California doing my first year online. And I'm actually getting ready to move out to DC in a couple of days. But my pathway into law school was by no means traditional. I think I'm a testament that if something is for you, it'll always happen. And, you know, to stay true to yourself as well. And I think that Jessica spoke to it with imposter syndrome. I would advise you start working through that now than later. If you need to go to therapy like for it, but you really need to work through that, because oftentimes, and I know I'll stop because I can be long-winded, we can be our worst critic. So I would just say that was my pathway. And if you have any questions, I'll drop my email. Happy to set up another time to chat if those want to talk to me further.
Yeah, thank you for going so much in depth to your story. You know, a lot of important themes you covered. Research is me search, first gen walking between two worlds, imposter syndrome, and, you know, giving us a lot of insight into higher education beyond undergrad. So thank you so much for that answer. And yeah, for all the panelists, if you feel comfortable, feel free to drop your contact so these students could get in touch with you. It'd be really resourceful. But the next question is for Brenda. We're going to take it back to the undergrad experience and ask, how was moving away from home like for you and your family? And did you ever experience any form of guilt?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Very, very on point. Yes, yes to everything. So when my first year at UCLA, I did move on campus to the transfer dorms, and that was amazing just to be kind of in that environment. And even though your family is just like down the 405 freeway, couple hours away on the dang freeway, you know what I mean? Like it's still like you're away. But then even now doing my master's and deciding to come back to Ireland and being away from them, there is like you do kind of go through the motions of like, at first it's kind of like, okay, relief, I'm out of this kind of world where people are very heavily dependent on me in a lot of ways. So you have to like physically remove yourself from the situation just so you're fully available to focus on what you're doing, right? And so, but then, you have them back home and you're separated by time zones. I'm 8 hours ahead of everybody back home. So, they're sleeping when I'm awake and I'm going to bed when they're starting their day. And so the communication, you have to make time and space for that communication, just to stay in touch with them, because I'm missing out on things. Like my niece is at home and she's little, and, I'm not there for those things to help out, or help my parents navigate things tech wise, things that I would normally help them out with, like I can't do. But it's so important, I think, to give yourself the space to do that, because I think, if you've, just kind of listening to everybody else's stories in a lot of ways, you're kind of, sometimes you're like the dependable one at home, and people need you. And it's just kind of like, it's okay to make the room and say, you know what, I'm going to take this time for myself to focus on what I want to do so I can make space for my life and what I want to do in the future. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to, and it's not selfish. It's not, you have to grapple with these things. It's not a selfish thing to do. You're moving on with your life, and that's okay. You know what I mean? But sometimes you have to be willing to just put your foot down and say, you know what, I'm going to take a leap of faith and jump. And I'll tell you all right now, it's literally the best decision you can ever make, because I have met some of the most amazing people in my experience being abroad, and I have made amazing friends. And it's just incredible to think that I have friends that are all over the world now. You know what I'm saying? Not just here in Ireland, but like when I was here on exchange in 2018, even like I have friends in Canada, I have friends in Vienna, I have friends in Germany and Norway and like all of these places. So, sometimes you have to take the step out to give yourself these opportunities, and you create these networks that are not just at places like UCLA, but worldwide, and you never know where it's going to lead. So give yourself the chance to have these opportunities. It's not a selfish thing to do. You're investing in your future. And I highly, highly believe that. So, and that's what kind of gets me through the homesickness, because of course I miss home. I miss LA. The sun and, my car and stuff like that. But like in the long run, it's going to pay off. And again, you have amazing experiences and get to like experience other people's cultures and, the places where they live. And it's an incredible thing to do. I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Yeah, that feeling of guilt is a common one among us first gens. And, thank you for sharing your ways of navigating it. And, it resonates with me because I just became a caretaker this past year and preparing to move out in a month to finish my undergrad. And, we appreciate your words. So thank you so much, Brenda. Our next question is for Lena. And we're going back to the conversation beyond undergrad. Did you ever imagine yourself pursuing a PhD, and what motivated you to do it?
That's a great question. I think I never imagined myself to go beyond undergrad. I don't even, when I was working, when I was taking the time off from school, I never imagined myself at some other places. I thought I was just gonna stuck here. I'm stuck here with this kind of job, with this employer, and that's gonna be my life. It came to the point that I realized, I'm kind of losing my mind. So I kind of reevaluate myself and my journey, my goals as well. And I decided to return to school. I think starting that point, I realized I have so much more potential to grow. And I have mentors who support me, who really believe in me and believe in the story I have. And that's where I realized maybe I can, if I can just tell my story and do the research about API immigrants and docu API immigrants, maybe I can do something with a PhD. So once I transferred at UCLA, I didn't have any research skills. I will say I started really late in research. I wasn't in any of the research programs either because I didn't even know those programs. And it's a quick turnaround to apply once we just started transfer. I didn't participate in TSP. I didn't know there was a TSP, the summer program with AAP. So I kind of missing out a lot of opportunity, but I was able to catch up through doing independent study with the professors. Wonderful professor from labor study, which is another community I really cherish. I also did some independent study with professors from education, and you really have to find your passion. I think I kind of really discover my passion in education and especially education equity. I want to support students like me who feel left out, who were invisible, and who are able to succeed and have so much potential if they are given the support they need. I think that's why I decided to pursue a PhD program, but it wasn't an easy journey because I also have to get my master first and then apply for PhD. And in the graduate school, there's another level of hidden curriculum you don't know. So similar to navigating the transfer process or higher education for your universities, once you start a PhD or even in the application process, there are fee waivers you can apply to so you can save money. GREs are not that important anymore, especially with UCLA. I think the student government are trying to remove GRE requirement for all the admission purposes. There are also different ways to write your personal statement. I didn't know you had to reach out to professor before you're applying to them. There are just a lot of that kind of, again, like those hidden curriculum are not being well versed, but you really have to rely on your community and also your own research to build those connections to bridge that gap in the application process.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer and for touching upon, the hidden curriculum. You don't know what that is, look it up, or, we'll teach you about it at CCCP. But yeah, thank you for touching upon, the importance of mentorship. And, that research is not just the new iPhone. Research is me search, research is passion. It's about, documenting and learning about your community. So thank you so much for that. And with that being said, we're out of time for a panel. Thank you so much again to all of the panelists for sharing your time and space with us and your wisdom and your wealth and your contact information, everything. We really appreciate you coming to speak to our attendees, and to our attendees, we hope you really resonated and, gained something from this. So with that being said, I'll pass it on to Blanca and Frank to continue our webinar.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you for the amazing work you did as a moderator. And thank you again to all the panelists for your amazing contributions to this webinar. And, as first-gen students, you have a lot to contribute, and we have a lot to learn from you. So we just want to say thank you again for being here, taking time off your schedule to be here with us today. So with that said, we're going to move on to our next activity, our next workshop. You can give them all a round of applause, or our panelists. Erin, please give them a round of applause. Use your reactions. Say thank you for being here. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. You can stay if you want to, but you're busy. All right. So up next we have Frank.
Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up. All right, everybody. So I am here to talk about wellness. So I'm going to be doing a wellness presentation. So I know I didn't share this in the beginning, but before coming back to work for the Center for Community College Partnership, I actually worked as a psychiatric social worker for about 2 years. And so I worked with different populations, different ethnicities, different ages, and I worked with folks who had been diagnosed with severely mental health disorders. And so wellness has always been a big part of that, right? And so I'm here to talk a little bit about wellness and self-care and why it's important, especially since throughout the webinar, folks have been talking about, feeling stressed, feeling anxiety, feeling depressed. And so before I begin with the presentation, if you are feeling depressed, if you are feeling anxious, if you're suffering from PTSD, please seek help. In one of our webinars for the students with disability, the keynote speaker said, seeking help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And so please don't think that, if I seek help, it's because I'm weak. It's not. Everybody needs help. Sometimes we feel like we can do it on our own. Sometimes we get mixed messages where folks are like, oh, you'll snap out of it. Walk it off. You'll be okay. But please, if you're in need of someone to talk to professionally, please seek help. I know as first generation students, students of colors, sometimes we may not have insurance. And so sometimes the first time that we have insurance is when we actually transfer to a four-year university. So if that's the case, once you transfer, please seek help. We need to take care of our mental health and our physical health. All right, so I'm gonna begin with a presentation. It's gonna be short, and then we'll do an exercise, a breathing exercise. So if we can go to the next slide. So what is self-care? Can anybody tell me what self-care is? I know we've been hearing it. A few years ago, I would tell folks, practice self-care. I know, like, for the keynote speaker, Dimple, she would tell me, like, how do you take care of yourself? Like, hearing folks' stories or talking with folks who have been through different traumas. And I used to always tell her, like, oh, I practice self-care. And she was like, well, I don't know what that is. But I think now it's more common for folks to say, like, oh yeah, practice self-care. So can anybody just, like, write in the chat, like, what is self-care? What do you do for self-care? Yeah, so taking time for yourself by doing other things. I'm gonna read some of the chat. Work out, walking my dog. Let me see. Yoga, meditation. So these are examples of self-care or coping mechanisms that we do in order to do self-care. And so the definition, if we can click the slide one more time, it should give us a definition. So the definition, according to the World Health Organization, the definition of self-care is the ability of individuals and families and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and cope with illness and disability with or without the support of a healthcare provider. So self-care is what you want to make it, right? And so there's different type of coping strategies, positive coping strategies or coping mechanisms that you can use. And so a lot of folks have mentioned, like, doing yoga, taking a walk, coloring, fishing, playing with my kids. Those are great examples of positive coping skills. So so whatever you have to do in order to take care of yourself, your mental health and your physical health, that's your self-care. So everyone's self-care is going to be different. Your self-care is not wrong. Movement, listening to my breath. So that's a good self-care, right? Being mindful, right? Being mindful of, like, the way you're breathing. And I'll talk a little bit about mindfulness. So if we can go to the next slide. One more time. So these are the types of self-care. And so you can see like self-care goes into a lot of different areas, right? And so there's physical type of self-care, psychological, financial, professional, environmental, spiritual, social, and emotional. Sometimes like when we say, oh, I'm going to practice self-care, it kind of just gets jumbled in all of our areas. And so if you can see the types of self-care, where for physical, uh, like getting enough sleep is a form of positive coping skills. A lot of times, uh, especially as students, we sacrifice sleep either to, study all night, to do all nighters, to write papers, and so our sleep suffers, right? So, a positive self care for physical is to get enough sleep, right? Stretch, get out and walk, physical release, healthy food, yoga. So these are certain things that folks have mentioned in the chat. And so for emotional, it's stress management, right? So we talked about like all these stressors, whether it's school, financial, familial, being in relationships, the pandemic, right? The stress of being in a pandemic and what that all that brings. And so dealing with stress management, right? Uh, Forgiveness, compassion, feeling kindness, right? So those type of self-cares that you can do in that area. Social, creating boundaries, right? So creating boundaries is a really good one. And one of our student panelists in the foster youth webinar said learning how to say no to things is really important for boundaries, because sometimes, some even at work, right? They might ask you to do a certain thing and you're like, well, I'm already off. And so learning to say no is really important. Even in your family, sometimes like they'll ask you and you're like, oh, I really don't have time. I need to do something else. So learning how to say no is a really important thing. Building support systems, positive social media, communications, time together, asking for help. So like I mentioned, asking for help is a sign of strength and not a weakness. Spiritual, time alone, meditation, yoga, connection to nature, journaling. Journaling is really good. It's like writing a diary. Just write what you're feeling, and it's something that you can just let go, right? Uh, and creating a sacred space. Yeah, exercising is really good. So personal, creating hobbies, knowing yourself, personal identity, honoring your time, right? Your true self. Space, creating a safe space, healthy living, uh, security and stability, organized space, and financial is saving, budgeting, even spending, like uh, splurging and paying bills, and work, time management, work boundaries, positive workspace, uh, more learning and break time. And if we could go on. So these are examples of 100 positive coping strategies or coping skills that everyone can do. And so I'll just go over a few of them. So like taking deep breaths is a really good one. And the reason I mentioned taking deep breaths is because that's one of the exercises that we're going to do in a little bit. Meditate, also important because that's also part of the exercise. Uh, but you can play sports, listening to music, close your eyes and relax. Say, I can do this. So, like positive affirmations. During the foster youth webinar, we used a lot of positive affirmations. So, that's really important. Like, something that's going to hype yourself up. Like, I am worthy, I belong. Uh, get enough sleep, eat a healthy snack, read a good book, right? So these are really simple positive coping strategies that we can all do every day. And so the reason I put positive coping strategies is because there's actually negative coping strategies that folks sometimes end up doing. Can folks list a few like negative coping skills in the chat? And I'll check this chat. So what would be some examples of like negative coping skills? Yeah, doing drugs, bottling things up, stress eating, yes. Yes, smoking, Not eating, yeah, telling yourself you got it wrong because you're dumb, yes. Like all those overspending money, ignoring your body needs, yes. Putting yourself down, going back to bad habits, binge eating. Yeah, so those are all examples of like negative coping, self-harm, yes. Those are all, so criticizing yourself, right? Negative self-talk, uh, where you put yourself down saying like, oh, I don't belong here, or I'm not smart enough. Uh, so it's about changing your thought process, and instead of criticizing yourself is where you begin to like self-talk, you positive self-talk. Like it's all about changing your thinking, right? So yeah, driving fast in a car, chewing your fingernails, becoming aggressive or violent, eating too much or drinking too much or not eating at all, right? So these are all examples of negative coping skills. So we want to focus more on the positive coping strategies. Uh, so we won't, keep all those emotions in, right? And just let it out on the wrong person. If we can move on. So what is mindfulness? We've talked about it. We mentioned it throughout the webinar. Mindfulness, it's something it's a lot of folks are talking about now. So what are examples, or how would you define mindfulness? Yeah, being present. So yes, that's part of being part of mindfulness, right? Of practicing mindfulness. So if you look at the picture, being in the now, exactly, that's exactly what it is, being present and being in the now. So if you look at the picture, aware of your surroundings, yes, taking in your surroundings. Yes, if we can press one more time so we could get the definition. Yes, so mindfulness is a type of meditation in which you focus on being intensely aware of what you're sensing, feeling in the moment without interruption or judgment. Practicing mindfulness involves breathing, breathing methods, guided imagery, and other practices to relax the body and mind to help reduce stress. And so in the picture, there's a picture of a man and a dog, or a person, right? And you can see his mind is full, right? And you can see in the picture where, the person is sad. There's a lot of like maybe stressors that are keeping them worried. And you can see the dog is in the presence. All the dog sees is what's in front of him, right? They're present. They're looking at the trees and the sun. And so that's basically what mindfulness is being in the present, but it's also being aware of how you're feeling, right? So if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling stressed, so mindfulness would say like, okay, instead of ignoring the way you're feeling, you would focus on like, okay, why am I feeling stressed? What's stressing me out, and what can I do in order to alleviate that stress, right? And so mindfulness is about being present, not ignoring how you're feeling, and what can you do in order to change the way you're feeling, right? And so mindfulness is it's kind of one of the easiest things that we can practice. So mindfulness and self-care, these are the easiest ones that we can do. If we can move on, and I believe that might be it. Yes. So we can stop sharing. And so the next thing, I know that we're over time a little bit, so I'll go over a quick breathing exercise. I was going to do a guided meditation, but I think that would take too long. So one of the things that we can do is practice our breathing, right? And breathing, this is something that you could do anywhere. You can do it, while you're a passenger in the car. You could do it in your class. And so one of the first things that you want to do is you want to like sit straight wherever you're sitting. If you're laying down, then that's cool too. You want to get yourself grounded. So you want to put your feet flat on the ground, so you know that, okay, I'm grounded. You want to put your hands on your lap, and then you kind of just want to relax your shoulders, because that's where a lot of we feel a lot of stress builds right there. And so we're going to practice on our breathing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in through our nose, and we're going to hold it for a 5 count. But if you can't hold it for a 5 count, then hold it as long as you can. If it's 3, it's 2, whatever you feel comfortable with. And so we're going to breathe in through our nose for 5, hold, and then we're going to exhale through our mouth. And so we'll do that for a little bit. So we'll breathe in, release, inhale, hold, release, inhale. And we'll just keep doing that for a little bit. And what you want to do is you want to be mindful of the way your breath is going in, right? You want to be mindful of the way your lungs are filling in with air, right? You also want to be mindful of like how your body feels, right? When you're breathing, you're doing the breathing exercise, and you're keeping in with the breathing in 5 count and letting out, because this is where you start trying to release stress, whether it's on your shoulders, whether it's even like releasing what's in your mind, right? You might be stressed, you might be worried about something, and so it's kind of clearing your mind and just doing that. And you can do this for, a few minutes. You could do it for 5 minutes. You could do it for 10 minutes. This is something that you can do anywhere. It's easy. Usually when we do a guided meditation, I would go into, going over the 5 senses and imagining certain places and places that make you happy, and then we'll focus on all the 5 senses on your imagery. But because we're also running out of time, and I want to be mindful because we also have awesome activity coming up next, but if you have any questions, please share it in the chat. I'll leave my information. This is something simple that we can do just to get yourself grounded and to, something that can help you out throughout the day. And yep.
I don't know if you were going to say something else.
No, if there's any questions, you can share it in the chat. I'll be here throughout the end of the webinar, so I could answer questions and also share my information.
Thank you so much again, Frank. This was amazing. I don't know about any of you all, but I did it, and it does help. Sometimes we're in the go, right, mentality, and sometimes we don't even really take the time to stop and breathe. So thank you so much for reminding us to breathe and take care of ourselves. And with that said, we have an activity for all of you. So Jessica, once again, thank you, Frank. You're amazing. That's my plan.
Hello. Oh, sorry, Blanca. Hello, everyone. So yes, now it is a time for us to test our knowledge and see how much we know about the UC system. So we're gonna do a very quick activity. If y'all, I love doing this when I was in high school, and even community college, some professors, and we're gonna do it now. So if y'all can do me a big favor and go to Kahoot, and we are going to be playing a Kahoot game. So just enter the code and just a name, and we will get started shortly.
Just a reminder, we're not having a raffle this time, we're having a Kahoot. So whoever wins the Kahoot will be a winner of our next prize. So please join. And thank you, Jessica, for leading this amazing activity.
There's a lot of us, which I'm very excited to see how many. Let's see how it goes. I'm very excited for this. So just continue putting in the code. Again, just go to kahoot.com, Kahoot, and then put this game pin, and you should be directed to this. We're gonna give it 1 more minute just for the sake of time.
So remember, the winner of Kahoot wins a prize. So if you're not in yet, please join.
Okay, who's ready? I think we're gonna get started, and again, just for the sake of time, we want to be definitely very respectful of your time. So we're gonna get started. Let's start. So first generation webinar, we're gonna continue. And you have 10 seconds to answer the question. So the first question is, when does the UC application open? So if you were paying attention to our pre-slides, the information was there. So when does it open? Yes, so the UC application is actually open right now. It opened on August 1st. I'm not gonna say when it's the deadline because that's gonna be one of the questions. So again, just keep in mind that if you are applying for the UC system this year, the application is open. You cannot submit it yet, but you can definitely work on your PAQs. And if you need questions with PAQs, we're here for you. So Anthony, good job. So question number 2, what is the minimum transferable GPA to get into a UC? Yes, so the minimum transferable GPA, it is actually 2.0. However, right, although the minimum, is 2.0, you want to make sure that you prepare yourself as much as possible and you get, as greater as possible. And also keep in mind that every UC system, depending on your major, has a specific, GPA requirements. So when you're transferring, that's something that you could definitely have to pay attention for, like the GPA for your department, the specific school. And we're only saying this, because there are some majors, some departments that are going to be a little bit more competitive. But however, there's ways that you can go around it, and you can definitely choose like alternative majors that will eventually get you to the same career path. So again, 2.0 to just get your UC application look up, but we definitely want to aim for more. Amber. So question number 3, how many UCs are there? Yeah, so there's 9 total UCs. I believe that the community college, there's, I don't know how many. I think it's like 100 and something or 200. I may be wrong, but yes, 9 Cs within California, it's only 9. We've seen some people moving up. Let's see, next question. Which UC has a greater student population? That's a good question. Yes, so yes, indeed. UCLA has the most students, believe it or not. I was shocked when I found this. I was like, wow, I can't believe that. But yeah, UCLA has, the most students enrolled. And yeah, that's interesting. Monica, you're in first place. Great job. So question number 5, which UC has the largest campus? So the one was population. This is the largest campus. Yeah, so it's actually UC Davis that has the biggest campus. And something that I want to mention, right? As you're like trying to figure out what university is the best for you, definitely, if you're able to, of course, take advantage of resources, at your community colleges. I know some of them do offer like field trips to those, colleges and universities, but UC Davis is so beautiful. Like I love the bikes. They have so many bikes everywhere, and now it makes sense why they're like the largest campus. But definitely take advantage of all the resources that provide students to go and for you to meet other campuses. Julia, great job. I see some people moving up and down this game. We still have a lot of, we still have a couple more questions, so anything can happen. So question number 6, where was the original location for UCLA? Where do you think it was? Yeah, so LACC was actually the first location of UCLA, and then they moved it to its actual location at the moment. So yes. Great job. Next question. Question number 7. How many transferable units do you need in order to transfer to the UC system? Yeah, so in order for you to transfer, you need at least 60 units for you to transfer. Trying to figure out what classes to take, I know sometimes can be a little bit difficult, but definitely reach out to a counselor or a transfer rep, or even, you know, a CCP peer advisor, so we can help you pretty much like kind of navigate what classes you need. Assist.org is such an amazing resource that you also can, you know, utilize as you're trying to map out your classes. For you once you transfer, because you want to make sure that you get prepared as much as possible when you meet those minimum requirements, because some departments do want you to have some classes done. So yeah, so for now, just know that it's 60 transferable units that you have to have. Great job, y'all. 56 people. That's amazing. Next question. How many UCs have a transfer admissions guarantee? Yes, so there's out of the 9 campuses, only 6 UC universities actually offer the UC tag. And also remember that for you to tag, it's actually due at the end of this month. So you got to make sure that if you're transferring and you want to submit the tag, please do so. Submit that tag to one of those 6. And if you have any questions, let us know. Next question, question number 9. So when is the deadline to submit the FAFSA/California Dream Act application for priority consideration? So when is that FAFSA Dream Act, you know, due? You want to make sure that you remember this day, like always remember this day. Yes. So remember again, March 2nd, the deadline, right? After March 2nd, you of course can continue to submit your FAFSA or your California Dream Act, but it won't technically be considered a priority. So you want to make sure that you submit it as early as possible, so you can get that money, because let me tell you, money is so important. So just keep that in mind. Next question, question number 10. What does UC tag stand for? So what does tag stand for? So yes, tag stands for Transfer Admissions Guarantee. Next question, number 11. Which of the following UC campuses do not offer tag? So you got to make sure that you know which one. Which one does not offer tag? So yes, UC Berkeley is one of those UC campuses that do not offer tag. The other one is UCLA and UC San Francisco.
San Diego.
Next question, when is the deadline to submit the UC application for fall 2022? So when is the deadline to submit that application? Yes, November 30th. Again, that UC application opens on August 1st. It's open right now, but for you to be able to submit your application, it's from November 1st to November 30th. So just keep that in mind. You have 30 days, to submit your application, but do not wait until last minute. Working with them with time, trust me, especially for those PIQs, you definitely want to take your time on them. Next question, question 13. What does CCCP stand for? So what does it stand for? Yeah, so CCCP stands for Center for Community College Partnerships. Great job, y'all. Okay, we're almost there, almost there. 2 more questions. All right, next question. What theoretical framework does CCP use? So we talked about this one. So what do we use? What do we follow? Yes, critical race theory. We had such an amazing guest speaker talk about critical race theory. It's so important to know, and definitely just keep in mind, right, that despite, you know, the different, you know, institutional barriers that we have as, you know, students of color, right, there's also our experiences are so valid and are so important as, you know, as we navigate and as we continue higher education. And last question. Do CCP scholars get guaranteed admissions to UCLA? True or false? So false, yes. So CCP does not guarantee admissions to UCLA. However, right, we will make sure that we prepare you and we guide you to become the most, you know, the most, how do you say, like, that you're prepared, you know, the most prepared, you know, student when you're transferring. So just keep in mind the CCP does not offer admissions, but of course we're going to work very hard to make sure you're a competitive applicant and your application stands out, you know. And yeah, so thank you all so much for playing. Let's see the results. Kim, 3rd place, great job. Sandra A. And our 1st place winner is Giselle. Congratulations. Thank you so much for playing, y'all. Again, you know, you will be receiving a gift from us. So again, thank you so much for playing and taking the time to answer these questions. We will make sure to get your information and you'll get a gift shortly. So thank you all so much for playing with us today.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for this game. And thank you to all the peer advisors who have been dropping links and information in the chat. Thank you all so much for your wonderful job today and for informing the students. So with that said, we have come to the end of our presentation. Well, we still have some information to share with all of you. So just hang in there for a quick second and we'll get going with the closing. Aaron?
Yeah, hello again, everyone. So next Tuesday, we will be having our first Power to the Southeast Asian Transfer Student Experience webinar. We're going to be talking a lot about the history of Southeast Asians, the model minority myth, the educational pipeline, the transfer student experience, and mental health. We got some great guest speakers and panelists lined up. So if y'all have the time and capacity, please join us to learn more about our community. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you for moderating the panel earlier. Up next, we have, we also want to remind you that we have, aside from our Southeast Asian webinar happening on Tuesday, we have 3 more webinars happening next week. So we have our non-traditional happening August 19th, our undocumented webinar on Friday the 20th, and we have our last webinar of this series, the Chicanx Latinx webinar on Saturday, August 21st. So you can join all of them. You know, you're not restricted to just one, so feel free to come back, join us again, spend some time with us. The non-traditional one is happening in the evening, so unlike all of the other webinars happening in the morning and afternoon, that one is happening in the evening. So if you have time in the evening, you're more than welcome to join. And with that said,
all right, everyone. So the Center for Community College Partnership is still accepting applications. We extended the deadline. The deadline is coming up soon. So if you haven't submitted your CCP Scholars application, please do so. If someone could please share it in the chat. So the deadline is August 23rd. If you want to scan the QR code to get the application. I know the webinar didn't really focus on transferring but that's what we do. That's what we do at the Center for Community College Partnership. We have students with their transfer needs. So please join our program so you can get invited to webinars that are specifically focused on how to transfer and how to write your PIQs and the UC application. So if you want all that good stuff and you want to get invited and you want to be part of a cohort and get a peer advisor, please submit your application. It is due August 23rd. Please join us.
Thank you so much, Frank. And also don't forget to join the group me. We're gonna be dropping links to resources, also the link to the webpage so you can revisit the recording to this webinar, check out the bios for our presenters and more information. So please feel free to hover over this QR code so you can join or just click on the link. And with that said, I'm gonna pass it on to Chelly.
Yes, so we want to thank, first of all of you for being here today and joining us. We hope that today was informational and motivational for you. I also want to thank all of our speakers that joined us today. Thank them for their time and for contributing to today's event. And of course, the staff. So thank you to all the peer advisors, all the professional staff, the planning committee. Thank you to everyone. Please stay connected. Please let us know if you have any questions or if we can support you in any way. Thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you in one of our upcoming webinars, and we hope to see you in our workshops and activities and events that we have planned for you all throughout the academic year.
Thank you all again. Thank you so much for joining us this Friday, staying here this Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful and restful weekend. Do not forget to take care of yourself. Thank you to everyone in the planning committee. Thank you to all the peer advisors who were here all day responding to questions, answering just following up in the chat. Thank you all so much. This would not have been possible without any of you. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because you're not right at the bottom, but from my heart, I just want to say thank you so much. And Frank and Kelly for co-leading this.
Yes. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here and sharing space with us, building community, being proactive in your education and filling out the application and seeing what CCP is all about, right? It's important. We want to be with you on your transfer journey. So once again, this is a plug for our CCP scholar application. It was a long day, but it was very informative. So thank you to, all our presenters, all our panelists, all our PAs. As you can see, we have a big team, and teamwork makes the dream work, right? So it was just not the planning committee, but CCP is huge, and we move as a team, and so that's the way we work, and that's how we want to support you. So thank you once again for being here, and please take care of yourself. Stay safe.
Also, as you're leaving the room, if any of the peer advisors here want to say any parting words to the attendees.
Yeah, I just want to say, stay motivated, take time for yourself, and don't put too much pressure on yourselves. Just like many of the attendees and the panelists said, what's meant for you is meant for you. So yeah, thank you for being here, everybody.
Yeah, please, everybody, remember that what is yours is already yours, and it will always belong to you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming here today. This is the end, but it's only the beginning of your journey here with us. And so just remember, you don't have to do this by yourself. We're here You have a big community. This is your family now. So CCCP is forever. So you got us till the end.
Alicia, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I had a question.
Mhm.
I was wondering, so when would we meet like our peer advisors, or is that like towards when we're gonna get closer to transferring?
So you would get assigned a peer advisor once the fall quarter begins. So we're currently still accepting applications. So once the application is over, you will get assigned a peer advisor. So actually a coordinator will actually contact you first. A program coordinator will contact you first, and they would connect you to your peer advisor.
Oh, okay, got it. Also, I was gonna ask about like if when we decide to like apply to UCLA and we want to get like more than one major, like are we able to like actually apply to like two at the same time? Like an alternate major?
So the only way that you can apply with an alternate major is if you're part of the TAP program, so the Transfer Alliance program, or your honors program at your community college. That's the only way that UCLA will look at an alternate major. Other than that, they really just focus. If you're not part of the honors program or the TAP program, they only really look at your first major.
Oh, okay. But if you want to like I guess like have multiple majors, you could apply in that first like application. Like let's say like you want to do like political science and psych, you would apply like those two at the same time, or like would they have like preferences of how which major you like enter with, if that makes sense?
Maxine has her hand up. Maxine, you.
Yeah, I was just I actually double majored. So I double majored in political science and communications. So how that would work is you would apply with your main major. So ideally that would be like the most selective major. So political science is a quote highly selective major. So you would apply with that one. I think psychology might also be as well. And then you can apply to your second major once you get to UCLA. A lot of departments have different rules about it. So some departments will just allow you to add on once you've done everything you need to. Some departments you need to apply for that. So for the comm major, for example, like I had to submit an application to the comm department. I had to write essays for them. They had to like review it after like a whole year, and I didn't get in until like the summer before my senior year. So it's a different process for every department, which is a little bit confusing. So I would say plan on your first choice major and then add on your second major once you get there. And you can also always talk to your counselor and the counselors for different departments. So the department that you're already in and the department that you want to add, because they can advise you on like, does this look feasible? Are your majors too long to work out in a reasonable timeline? And all that stuff like that. That helps.
Got it. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Maxine.
I have a question about, I'm sorry, I'm trying to fill out the scholar's application. And one of the questions is if I participated previously in a program, but I don't find the name of this program. So should I write none or other?
Yeah, so if you haven't participated in any of our programs, you would select none.
Thank you so much.
Monica, you have a question?
Yes, so I just recently submitted my application and I got for the scholars program and I did get accepted, but I realized that in my application there was some information that I was going to edit later, but then when I went to click next, it just submitted by, like, I didn't realize it was going to submit. So I was wondering if there was any way I can like access the information I submitted and edit some of the stuff. Like, for example, so it was asking for social security number and I was going to input it in later, but I just continued to click to see the next part of the application, so then it submitted. So yeah, I was just wondering if there's like
Yeah, so Chelly shared in the chat that if unfortunately you can't make edits, so we would have to make edits for you. So if you Chelly shared in the chat the email that you can send requesting for the person to make edits for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the email is ccp@ucla.edu.
Oh, okay. And would I be able to ask them if I can like view my application again, so then I can tell them which parts to edit?
Maybe.
The part about review. Unfortunately, the system that we have is, I don't want to call it archaic, but you're not able to, you don't have access, like direct access to go back and make any edits yourself. So if there are any I don't know, like updates or any edits, you will have to email us, and we will like Frank said earlier, we will have to make those changes for you. And then once we select, once again, you need to meet all the requirements, make sure that you have the UCTAP account, that it is up to date. And once that's done, then you should receive a follow-up email from us. And then if there's something missing on your application, the Scholars Program coordinator will follow up with you and let you know, send you an email, let you know that you need to submit.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much.
If there are any more questions, once again, you can, some of your advisors have dropped their contact information. Once again, you can send us any questions that you may have at cccp@college.ucla.edu, and we'll respond to you when we get a chance. I do see another question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you guys like had like a Zoom or something that maybe that we could go to, or is it just like the email that you guys offered?
So you can, just because given everything arrived with COVID and working remotely, you can send us an email like via at ccp.college.ucla.edu. And also if you are at one of our partnership campuses, we also have coordinators there. You can also email them directly. So, but if they're not, then you can just send an email to that specific that email address, and we'll be following up with you. Chelly?
Yeah, some of the coordinators and peer advisors for LACCD in Pasadena have drop-in hours. I don't know if you have an Instagram account, but those are listed on our accounts, and those are drop-in. So I know for myself at ELAC and for the other coordinators, they're open to any students dropping in to our drop-in hours. So you're welcome to join and ask questions to us there live. And additionally, you can also set up a meeting individually, but we are hosting drop-in hours.
Yeah. And Jasmine just dropped the handles in the chat. So once again, if you're part of one of the partnership schools, the coordinators are having dropping hours, so you can check in with them. And if you're not unfortunate part of one of those partnership campuses, you can still, obviously we're still serving the transfer community, so you will have to just send a message to the general CCCP email.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us. All right, folks, so this is it. Thank you once again for joining us this Friday, for sticking around this whole time. Once again, to everyone here, the planning committee, the advisors, you were all amazing. Thank you so much. And Sophie's still here. Happy birthday, Sophie. Thank you for staying here with us and sharing your birthday with us. Thank you. That's a gift to us. That's a gift to us. So happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're muted, Blanca.
I said now we can we can be gone. Thank you all so much for being here. To my plan buddy Frank, thank you, Shelly. Thank you so much. Everyone here, Aaron. I mean, come on, you're like super professional now. Like, is the professional moderator. Sophie, Johan, Jackie, Jasmine, Tracy, Patrocinio left, but Patrocinio let him know. Maxine was here too. Paola, Jessica, everyone, thank you so much. And everyone still here, thank you again for joining us. And the rest of the day and have a rest of the weekend.
All right, everyone. Thank you. I have a meeting right